Hello, my name is Donnie Griffin. I'm the founder of the Lift Every Voice Legacy, and welcome to the third annual tribute to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, inspiring a beloved community in song, spoken word, and dance. Normally, you would be here with me at the Edmond Center for the Arts. However, being things as they are, hopefully you are enjoying this at home. But before we start, I'd like to acknowledge this land that we're standing on. Arwen Valdez, who is the project director for this program, is going to read our land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Snohomish people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes, who, since time immemorial, have hunted, fished, and gathered, and taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and we honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water.
We are partnering this year with the Communities of Color Coalition to bring you a special edition of our tribute to Dr. King, Becoming Brave. You know, one of the quotes that I have been thinking about a lot from Dr. King, he said, "If you cannot do great things, then do small things in great ways." Well, I'll be frank with you, in 2020, I've not felt like I wanted to do much of anything. It was a very difficult year, and the difficulties still remain. But Dr. King calls us to let the light shine brighter when the days are dark. Become brave. Let's start the journey.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the testing rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our Father sighed. For we have come over a way that the tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the bright gleams of our bright stars is cast. So let us march on till victory is won.
Well, when we moved out here, it was like coming from Washington, D.C. to a really alien place. We didn't know anybody out here. There weren't many blacks. My kids weren't prepared for when they went to school. People looked at us as if we were a marvel, something that they'd never seen. And some of them were brave enough to say, "Where are you from?" But one day, my youngest daughter came and she was crying, and I said, "What's the matter?" She said, "Well, the teacher put me in the last group of reading." I said, "Were you tested?" She said, "No." I said, "Okay, everything will be fine. Anytime you see a black child and the name is Potter, make sure you test them, because I know that my child can read." That evening, my daughter came home smiling that she's in the first group of reading and that she's helping the kindergartners. And I said, "Wonderful." And at that point, I decided this is not going to be easy. I am going to start getting involved. I applied once because there was a vacancy on the city council. And I was the first person to apply for this job. I thought I was a shoo-in. I was the first person applying for this thing. Well, that was the first time I really met the old boys club. I knew who they were going to appoint to the job. And I left a little bit disappointed. But on the other hand, was new to Edmonds. I was a woman, and I was black. At one time, I served on a civil service committee to select the new sergeant. That was a while back. And that I enjoyed very much. Of course, I was the only black person on the committee, but I take pride in the fact that I could represent the blacks in Edmonds. Life is precious, but you can't sit in the back seat. You have to come forward, show who you are, get involved, not necessarily because other people are getting involved, but because you have this feeling right in here that is important. It's important to you, it's important to your family, it's important to other people. Get involved.
This summer was a big summer of conflicts, and lots of people reacted to them. So when I started this work, I made a big call to action for community members and people to stand with me and behind me. So I'm not alone. It just made me feel comfortable with shouting things out, and it made me feel more empowered to do more in the community. I would encourage youth to become brave in their communities. You just go for it, and so you gotta just keep pushing these community members and people in positions of power to do this work along with you. The outcome will be bigger. It will be bigger than me.
Over the last couple of years, the Lift Every Voice legacy has always looked for unsung heroes in our community who have been practicing the values of a beloved community. For 2021, the Board of Directors is very happy to present this year's award to the Hazel Miller Foundation.
Well, Hazel Miller Foundation has been in operation for about 10 years, and we are a civic-minded philanthropic group that Hazel Miller and her estate and her wishes to bring back dollars to the community for various programs, as the Teachers of Color program. Hazel was very intrigued by the South Snohomish County area and Edmonds.
For many, many years, people have talked about hiring a more diverse set of teachers. When we looked around, we realized that we had just this great pool of people already working in our schools. People that were working as paraeducators, as coaches, diverse and living in our communities that we just hadn't tapped. We found a way to remove barriers. We actually sat down and asked, what is keeping you from completing your teaching certificate?
I was invited to be a part of the Teachers of Color Scholarship Program, the inaugural year that it started. This was a landmark opportunity to be a strong tower for the students in my community, being able to see somebody who looks like them in their classrooms. The Teachers of Color Scholarship Foundation allowed for me to have a stipend during the time that I would not have been making an income, and that is the only way I was able to provide for my kids as a student teacher.
For many in education, the students of color just get lost. They get lost in graduation rates, they get lost in advanced learning opportunities, they get lost in discipline rates, they get lost in almost every aspect. The impacts that like our scholars like Justine are making in the classroom, we're just so proud. It's just beyond our expectations. Hazel Miller took a chance on the Teachers of Color Foundation and took a chance on something that was really unknown, and they believed in the cause. And I think that we're showing them that it's working.
As I teach now, to know that I have kids in my classroom and to be able to be the first symbol of you can do it, you can and you will, that opportunity in itself makes Hazel Miller a priceless piece of our community, and her legacy runs so deep in serving the students that I serve.
A little boy called out to his dad in the middle of the night. Dad came running in the room, said, "Are you all right?" The boy said that a monster was underneath his bed. His daddy said, "Son, remember this." This is what he said: "Lean in. When your fear keeps you at bay, lean in. Let the chips fall where they may. Face your fear, lean on in, look it in the eye. No matter what else happens, you'll know that you tried." That boy's now in high school, and he's thinking about the high school dance. He wants to ask a girl he thinks won't give him a chance. He's afraid if he asks her, she'll laugh and just say no. And then he remembers what his daddy said not so long ago: "Lean in. When your fear keeps you at bay, lean in. And let the chips fall where they may. Face your fear, lean on in, look it in the eye. When the final score is tallied, you know you did all right." That boy grew to become a husband and a dad. And when the cancer brought him to his knees, no hope was to be had. His family gathered round his bed on his final day. He said, "Now don't you be afraid," Grandpa used to say. "Lean in. When your fear keeps you at bay, lean in. Let the chips fall where they may. Face your fear, lean on in, look it in the eye. No matter what else happens, you'll know you did all right."
We're going to learn about one more citizen who has gone past the reticence and has always been a champion of a beloved community, building a world free of hatred, injustice, and poverty, not just during the time when we're all in a pandemic or paralyzed out of action, but for many, many, many years. Jackie Julian is the executive director of the Communities of Color Coalition in Snohomish County. She's going to tell us about one such champion.
C3 Communities of Color Coalition is an organization that has been around for 20 years. Since 2003, we had a collection of community leaders exhausted with the climate and the culture in our county, and decided to do something about it. So took a stance against racism and hatred. And one of those strong forces was Kiniku Habarakawa. When we think about the impact and what's needed as we shift and create new culture, she was a pillar and a fierce leader in advocating and demanding that change in boardrooms, in committees, all the places that are behind the scenes that go often unrecognized. Some of the work that we are doing in response to the pandemic, we have been providing direct assistance to our communities most vulnerable and impacted. Outside of rent assistance, we've been helping with utilities and food. But our long-term goal has always been to continue that legacy in creating change in policy and legislative action. And so collectively, being responsive to the needs of our community, we are leading the way with a trauma-informed approach to take care of the needs of our people. Women have always been at the front and center and the foundation of social change. And that is why it is with honor and privilege that I present this beloved community award to Kiniku.
Thank you very much for this beloved community award. I was very surprised when I was contacted by the Lift Every Voice Legacy. There was a whole team of people. We had 20 to 25 community members coming to our meetings to help us write our mission, vision, and value statements. So there was a whole lot of people that were involved in building the foundation for the group that people now see as the Communities of Color Coalition. And for me, it was going to city council meetings around Snohomish County to bring information to them and open their eyes to what types of things were going on within the community, to have them start looking at proclaiming Bias Crime Awareness Week within their communities. When we had more demographic information, looked at the discrepancies between where people of color and people of lower income lived. We did things with school districts, police departments. We also got into doing things with the media. They allowed us to put out weekly pieces about issues to do with inclusion and diversity and racism. And that's what I want to leave, is that sense of having accomplished something for others. Personally, it's for me. And that's all that matters.
You need to make sure you're listening like in school. Listen to my words like I'm your teacher. I'm going to speak my mind without being told I have an attitude problem. You're comfortable with telling us we belong on football fields, passing from bullets, but love us making your bullet passes. How with $1 million deal you want us like Emmett Smith, but treat us like Emmett Till. North, side, step for step.
Healing is an act of resilience, an act of survival, an act of defiance. United, we can't be silenced. United, we can't be stopped. Healing is an act of resilience, an act of survival, an act of defiance. United, we can't be silenced. United, we can't be stopped.
I'm very honored to have this opportunity to speak to you. I'm very grateful to the Lift Every Voice Legacy and the Communities of Color Coalition that's invited me to be here to speak with you. It's my journey to share with you and a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So thank you so much for this privilege. Under normal circumstances, I'd be with you at the Edmonds Center for the Arts, but today we get a chance to share this story, this life-changing experience in this medium, and for that I give God thanks. It was in 2014 that Sojourners Ministry in Washington, D.C. had a roundtable with clergy from all around the country in Ferguson, Missouri. We were asked to come because it was at the very beginning of the Black Lives Matters movement, and we needed to go for ourselves as clergy people to see if we couldn't understand what was actually happening in Ferguson. We were hearing news reports from all different types of places that were saying all different types of things about these young people who had taken to the streets after the murder of Michael Brown. So we came, all denominations represented, and we came so that we could hear for ourselves, see for ourselves, get close enough to the truth of what was going on to figure out how we, the people of God, should be involved with this and be a part of this. I was really shocked. I was shocked to see how they received us. There was respect to a point, but they were angry and they were not paying deference to us. They were not watching their words. They weren't being careful about what they said. In fact, when we came in, they said, you know, we didn't go looking for this. This is the hand that was dealt to us. And in many ways, they felt angry with those of us who were older and had been a part of the civil rights movement, because they said that you left this undone. You left this unfinished. And now we've got to pick up the pieces and we've got to move forward, but we're not looking to the church. They said, in fact, we don't like the church. We hate your hypocrisy. We hate your complicity with injustice. We hate your silence that you don't say anything. We hate the way you treat women, your misogyny, they said. Oh man, it was very hard to hear this critique because they were accurate in what they were naming. They said, we hate how you treat the LGBTQ community. It's almost as if you try harder to keep people out than to let them in. Ouch. And so we listened to them and we prayed and we took it all in and we repented. We told them, we realized that in many ways the church hadn't shown up for them in this generation. We said to them, we understood that this was not a movement like the civil rights movement and Dr. King, where Dr. King was literally giving a theology and a philosophy to the movement in the street. These young people did not want to hear anything from the church because they didn't see integrity in the church. And that was important for us as faith leaders to hear. So the next day, we are all gathering. We are trying to figure out what then must we do. And we have said to them that we're going to do better. Well, the next day we get a phone call and it comes through the cell phone of one of the pastors who's from St. Louis. And she reads to us a text that has been sent to her for us. And they say to us, we are going to be going to the steps of the courthouse today at 4 p.m. Are you coming or not? Now, let me tell you why that text came. Somehow, by God's providence, we were in Ferguson, Missouri on the day in December 2014, the decision to not indict the police officers who had strangled Eric Garner. He said multiple times, I can't breathe. Everybody thought that that was going to be one of those things where we would see justice because we saw him strangled on video. But instead, those officers were not held accountable. And they say to us, we are going to be going to the steps of the courthouse today at 4 p.m. Are you coming or not? Because you all said that you're going to do better. You all said that you'll be there for us. And so we all looked around. It was supposed to be our last session. Many of us had already booked our flights. Some of us had our suitcases with us because we'd be going to the airport from our final session. And we all had to make a decision in that moment where we're going to keep our word and show up for this generation that has lost its confidence in the church. And so we go in the middle of a protest, hand in the air, no justice, no peace. But I can tell you, I saw some things that night that changed my life. And it was the beginning of me stepping into a bravery that required more of me than I had seen of myself before. I watched young people who were sincerely standing for justice, willing to put their lives on the line for what they believed. I also saw some other young people who seemed like they were trying to have their moment in the sun. This young white guy who wants to look woke is about to cause these police to react harshly. He jumped on a fence that had been erected between the courthouse and the protesters, and there were police officers on the other side of that fence, and he jumped on that barricade, and other young people jumped on that barricade, and I thought to myself, we're going to get killed out here. And he, because he is in a white body, is probably going to not get hurt out here. And if he goes to jail, someone will bail him out. But there'll be some young black and brown kids out here in this street, and they might lose their lives tonight. And so I remember Dr. King in that moment. And I decided to do what he did on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I knelt down on my knees. I'm not sure what I was going to say or do. I just felt like we needed the Spirit of the living God in that protest in that moment. We needed the people of faith to demonstrate this transcendent power of our God in that moment. And there were other people who did kneel down around me. And in that moment, we brought a sacred presence to the protest. And we were in solidarity with young people. We were able to demonstrate that our faith was not a passive faith. Our faith was a faith that showed up in the streets, that stood with people, that knelt and called on our God as we also called out for justice. We cannot say that we love people and not care about the policies and the injustice and the systems that impact those people's lives. So church, the question that those young people asked us that night all those years ago is the same question they're asking us now. Are you coming or not? So in the spirit of Dr. King, my prayer is that our answer will be a resounding yes, because we've got a whole generation of young people who have lost confidence in the church, and they need to know, do we represent a God like the God of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who found himself reluctantly being called into the leadership of a movement that he did not anticipate at the time, but he said a yes to something he was asked to do because the time in which he lived demanded it of him. Esther in the Bible, when Mordecai comes to her and says, you've got to speak truth to the king. And she said, I can't do that. I could get in trouble. But he said to her, and he says to us, who knows? Maybe you've come to the kingdom for such a time as this. You can't keep silent now. And I want you to hear me say to those of us who are living in the middle of this time that we find ourselves in, this is our moment to stand up and speak up, because a generation is watching us and they want to understand that our faith actually is something that we practice, that they can see us combine our faith in Jesus with our call for justice. May that be our testimony. May that be our witness. It's changed my life, and it's called me to become brave.
Go out and tell the story. Let it echo, 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 far and wide. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. How justice was our battle, and how justice was denied. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And say to those who blamed us for the way we chose to fight, that sometimes there are battles that are more than black and white. And I will not lay down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Go out and tell the story to your daughters and your sons. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And tell them in our battle we were not the only ones. Make them hear you. Yeah. Make them hear you. You see, a sword can be a sermon, or the power of your pen. Teach every child to raise their voice, and then, my people, then can justice be denied? 10 million righteous men, make them hear you. Make them hear you. Go out and tell the story. Let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. How justice was our battle, and how justice was denied. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And say to those who blamed us for the way we chose to fight, that sometimes there are battles that are more than black and white. And I will not lay down my sword when justice is my right. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Make them hear you.
Hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far and that you've been inspired. I want to thank the Edmonds Bookshop, Edmonds College, and the Edmonds Unitarian Universalist Congregation, the Montlake Terrace Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Committee. Now, the engage part. What can you do? First, we hope that you will buy Dr. Brenda's book. You can purchase it online, your favorite bookstore online, or you could get it at the Edmonds Bookshop. The second thing is please feel free to share this video with others. After all, we're celebrating Dr. King not just on his birthday, but we should be celebrating him all days. And third, please feel free to donate. This program is free, and so we've had to find some ways to bring it to you. And anything you can do on the donate button would be greatly appreciated. We thank you. Be well, be safe, be brave.